Hi, everybody. So today we will be joined by two of the founders of Decolonizing Zoroastrianism, an Instagram page started by Zoroastrian youth which aims to deconstruct colonial narratives in our community. It was founded by Gordia and Yasna Akademian, along with Anahid Mobaraki. Today I'm joined by Gordia and Yasna to chat about why they started this initiative and what some of their goals are as they continue to spend time and resources on this initiative. So first, I'd love to do a brief intro. Gordia is Administrative and Communications Assistant at the Middle East Studies Association in Washington, D.C., USA. She received her BA in Politics with minors in Anthropology and Middle Eastern and Islamic Studies from NYU, and Masters in Near Eastern Studies from NYU as well. Yasna is pursuing a bachelor's in International Development Studies with minors in Persian and Arabic at McGill University in Montreal, Canada, where she's been a news and culture editor for the McGill Daily, a student publication. So I'm really excited to chat with them today and allow them to answer any of your questions. So we'll just give it a second and have them join us. In the meantime, thank you so much for being here. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments section below. We will go through all of them. And thank you for all of those of you who have already submitted your questions. Hi, everybody. So just waiting on Decolonizing Zoroastrian to join us. Oh, here they are. Okay. So just send us a request to join, and here we go. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, of course. Thanks for having us.
Of course. So happy. So I'm going to jump right into it. I'm going to ask you just to tell us more about this initiative you started and what inspired you to get started with it.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to start and see?
Sure. Yeah.
Like what we're doing?
I think a lot of it. So I focused my undergraduate on like political science and history. And this past semester I took a foreign policy of the Middle East course, and it was really eye-opening, and it was also reinforcing stuff I'd been thinking about for a very long time, in terms of understanding how imperialism and European colonization of Iran and India has played a role in how exactly we view our religion and how we view each other. And we also realized, I'm sure Gordy will speak on this more, that we really had a need as a community to be talking about these things. There's a lot we need to unpack and learn, and we want to make this material as accessible as possible because a lot of it isn't easily accessible. Yeah, is there anything you want to add?
In terms of what else we're doing, or yeah, so you guys have probably seen from our social media, we try to put together, as Yasmin mentioned, like accessible information, and we can't always get it down into like 10 slides. Instagram's not the most nuanced or comprehensive source of information, but we try to kind of narrow it down and make it accessible that way. And then we also have been doing kind of like bi-weekly discussions just with our local Zoroastrian community. We're part of Zamwi. And so in those discussions, we oftentimes talk about this material just because it's really helpful to talk about it too. Sometimes just reading it or just writing about it, it's not the same as really talking about it. So we talk about the material, we talk about history, we talk about kind of like racist language that people have used, or that's kind of inherent in either English or Persian. And then we've also done some like appropriation, I don't know, a lot of different things, a variety of things every other week. Yeah.
Okay. So what are you hoping ultimately people who come to your page and read it, what are you hoping that they get away from it and what they walk away with?
For me, I would hope that people would engage with our material and start to think critically about histories and narratives that we've been told about our religion and about our identities, and understand that nothing exists in a vacuum, right? There's a context and a reason for why we've held on to certain things for so long, and I would really hope people would interrogate that. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not always possible, but if someone has the time to also like look into some of the articles we've shared, like doing that research on your own is always extremely helpful. And for me, that's definitely been one of the main ways I've been learning and internalizing a lot of this information. And so I hope people would do that, and I hope people would just, as Gordy was saying, you know, like we all need to be very self-critical, because like it's far too overdue, and we really need to you know, just take a look at our histories and our narratives and why they are the way they are.
Yeah, and I would just also add, we oftentimes, part of what we are trying to do is amplify voices of Black activists, Black writers, who are doing really, really important work and who we've learned a lot from. So we would also hope that people would then, who maybe wouldn't read these people at first or wouldn't engage with this material, would be empowered to also learn and support and follow these activists and writers as well.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I know how much time goes into something like this. I can only imagine you spend hours and hours on research. So I'm wondering, what are some of the comments that you notice within the Zoroastrian community that you feel like is probably incorrect or maybe misled, and you see it's like a common narrative people might hold that might be problematic?
Yeah, I mean, I think as you probably see from our post, we have tried to really get into the Aryan myth. And I know, especially in discussions about race, for my sister and I, we live in the United States, so that's always kind of our frame of reference. That's been our experience. I understand in different contexts it's slightly different, but anti-Blackness is a global issue, so that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be talking about it everywhere. But when we talk about race, oftentimes we hear people bring up, well, we're Aryan, or this is an Aryan religion, we're white, such and such and such. And so that's one of the things that we really have been trying to work on unpacking and addressing, because I don't know if you want to kind of get into it more. We can kind of break it down maybe. This has the connotations of being white, and Aryan is something from European pseudo-scientific racism, right? It was something used to justify European colonialism, both in South Asia and in the Middle East. So this has like a very violent, harmful history. That's not to say Aryan as a word, Arya, it has existed and it's been part of ancient Persia, ancient Iran for a very long time.
Like Arya.
Right,
Yeah.
Sorry to be, it's a lot of material, but Arya has existed, and that's absolutely true. But it didn't have a racial connotation, right? The racial connotation of being Aryan was something that came with European pseudoscientific racism in the 1800s. Okay. So that's, yeah.
And I think that'll clear up one of the questions someone had. They said, you know, Aryan is not a bad word. And I think it's explaining to them it's not about the word, it's about the history behind it, the racial connotation behind it is what you are trying to unpack.
And like a describer, like the word itself, like Aryan, in and of itself is a racial term. Mm-hmm. So like there's like a very clear difference between like an ancient word that was like used to describe like nobility, I believe.
It's like culture. It was like a term of culture, like nobility. Right. It was something, it didn't have anything to do with race, basically.
Because like race as a concept, like as the thing used to justify colonialism, didn't exist at that time. And so there's a very clear difference between like Arya and how it was used like centuries ago, and Aryan as a racial or ethnic marker, which in and of itself is inherently like playing into pseudoscientific narratives.
Okay. I noticed someone in the comments wrote, for those interested, the book, The Emergence of Iranian Nationalism, Race and the Politics of Dislocation by Reza Ria Brahimi goes over this extensively. So I'm not sure. I guess that's a really good kind of resource for others who want to look into this further.
Yeah, absolutely. We've sourced Reza Zia Ibrahimi a couple of times.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Another question that came up was kind of what has the reception been so far to your Instagram page, to your post, to your research, both positive and probably critical?
Yeah, I think positive feedback, we've really appreciated that. Critical feedback we appreciate as well. Because, obviously we're not going to be always thinking about everything. We're going to miss something. So we appreciate that. Positive, it's just been really encouraging to hear people engage with what we're saying and really be open to it. For like my sister and I, like as she mentioned, this was part of her like undergraduate kind of experience. That's how she kind of came across this information. So we actively searched it out, but I know for a lot of people who maybe haven't studied like history or the humanities, we also had like a very privileged position being able to go to higher education institutions. So for a lot of people, this is new information. So that's all just to say that it's been encouraging to hear people engage with it and think critically about it. I guess for negative feedback, well, it's difficult because I know when we use these terms, we say Aryan myth, right? Or we say pseudoscientific racism, or we say Persian nationalism. These are very loaded words. And I think people have held on to these words for a very long time. And so I understand it kind of can elicit a very emotional reaction if we're going to say, well, maybe this is not actually fact, right? This is not actually something we should base our identities off of. So we often don't engage with feedback that is sort of seeking to increase misinformation, right? Or that is actively hateful. We don't really engage with that kind of material. We don't engage. But we have missed things in the past, and we've always really appreciated people who've come towards us and said like, hey, you didn't think about it this way. We also have really appreciated feedback from people noting that like it's not our place to talk about anti-Black racism, right? Like we don't experience that, and it's our job to interrogate like our investment in white supremacy, our investment and the ways in which we perpetuate this harm. But there are Black people who know their experience, who have been, who are experts in it, who can speak on their lived experience, and it's our job to amplify their voices and their work.
Oh, that's amazing. Thank you. And it's always great to see like youth-led initiatives that do that as well, which is why we're always happy to support youth initiatives wherever they happen. Another question that kind of came in, it's a part comment, part question. They said some people feel like the page has made them feel, sorry, I'm just reading the question. Some people has made them feel like the page makes them feel guilt when Zoroastrians have suffered enough and aren't racist or intolerant. I'm just wondering, like, why do you think they might feel that way? Why do you think they might feel like Zoroastrians aren't racist and they're not intolerant, and that this page might make them feel some sort of guilt?
Do you want to take this one?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think Gordy touched on it a bit. There's definitely a sort of gut emotional reaction when we feel that we are being called out, or if someone is saying that something we did was harmful. And it's important, it's so crucial to try to remove ourselves from that feeling and to really interrogate why we might feel that way. Mm-hmm. A lot of people who are not Black, since the Black Lives Matter movement has really come to the forefront this summer, have begun to feel a lot of discomfort and guilt trying to come to terms with how we've perpetuated white supremacy. And it's not about us. It's so important that we remove ourselves from that, because the most important thing is to create a space that is safe for Black people, and to really interrogate why we hold ourselves in the identities that we do. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, I mean, as Yassi touched on, I think if you're feeling guilt about hearing about harmful behavior that you could have perpetuated or that you could have something you could have said, I think, as Yassi said, you have to interrogate that and step back and think, why exactly am I feeling this way? What exactly do I feel guilty of? Where is this coming from? And I think I would also say that it's also really important that when we have conversations about perpetuating discrimination, it's not the time to talk about our own discrimination, right? Those things can and do exist simultaneously, right? We are a religious minority that has faced discrimination around the world, but that doesn't mean that we can't also perpetuate discrimination and, harm. So those things exist at the same time. And it's not enough to say like, oh, I've been hurt, so I can't, don't push me to think about this any further. Yeah.
I think maybe it's like, to explain, it's like, it's okay. We're proud to be Zoroastrian, but to be proud to be Zoroastrian doesn't mean you can ignore anything else outside of it. There could be things that we could be doing as a community that could be problematic, that could be misled or misunderstood. And it's trying to work on that to become better as individuals, become better as a community. So I think some people might see the page and feel like it's putting down Zoroastrianism as a community. It's not. It's I think we're all still collectively very proud to be part of this community. And there's so much to be proud of, but the page is here to educate our members about things that we might not be aware of. I think there's some things I wasn't even aware of, so that we can make this community a better, more inclusive place to be in. I think I saw a comment. It was talking about like it'd be interesting, something you could touch on in the future is the divide between Iranian Zoroastrians and Indian Parsis, because I think that's something people are aware of as well. Is that something you might touch on down the road?
I mean, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, no topic is off limits, really. In our own community, there are Iranians and Parsis. Ourselves, we are Iranian. Our dad is Iranian, and our mom is white American. And so it's something we've slightly observed, but I know that it is more extreme in certain parts of the world, the divide. But that's not something I'm very educated on. So that would be something I'd have to research more myself before making anything into a...
Totally fair. That's totally fair. I mean, if someone had, is interested in a topic for you to cover, how can they reach out to you?
You can always DM us. We also have an email in our bio that you're free to send any kind of questions, feedback, comments you have. We actually are also going to be hopefully sending out a listserv soon, so you can sign up for that as well.
Amazing.
So not everyone has Instagram, so that material more broadly.
But I think that's great. That was one of my questions was, outside of Instagram, how else can people, source your research? So there's going to be emails sent out as well.
Absolutely. And also we have our first translation in Persian ready. So we will be posting that very soon. I think it's for part 1 of the Aryan myth post that we made. So we are hoping to also have translations in Gujarati, because a lot of this material some of the more specialized terms may be very foreign if English isn't your first language, and so to make things as accessible as possible.
All right. Thank you. So just a reminder to everyone, you can follow on Instagram at decolonizing.zoroastrianism, and you can follow their page. They have their email there if you need to reach out, if you want to support them in any way, maybe suggest some future topics, or in general, if you just want to discuss anything with them, recommend you follow them there and reach out. And then we will be having a listserv soon, which is super great to hear, so that others who aren't on Instagram can still access your research. Is there anything kind of final you'd want to say, maybe some things that are coming up that we can be excited about?
Yeah, I mean, I guess some final comments that we would like to share is that it's really important during these times when we're having conversations about racism and discrimination. It's really crucial that, I think Yassi mentioned this before, not to center our identities in these conversations, but that also means that the way in which these conversations take place is really crucial. So I know a lot of us feel inspired to look to the Gathas or to look to our religious texts to kind of seek guidance about how best to, you know, be kind and be good and all of these things, how to do right by people. But I think, right, largely that's a book, right? And so when that's not accompanied by you know, active listening and engagement outside, right? If we're not actually listening to Black people or, you know, Indigenous people who have been speaking about their experience and have been advocating for themselves and their communities, then we're just kind of further perpetuating white supremacy, right? We are patting ourselves on the back for, oh, we're having these discussions, we're having these conversations. We gain social capital by doing so, but we never actually interrogate ourselves, the ways in which we're complicit, and we're never actually listening to the people that we're purporting to be supporting. So that's my last comment, is just to say that we can share some Instagram profiles of people who we've really learned a lot from, and we really encourage you to follow, support, and pay them for their work, because right, it's the bare minimum, you know?
Absolutely. And just to give a shout out as well, the Collective for Black Iranians launched yesterday. And so you can find them on Instagram and also on the web. Their username is Collective for Black Iranians. And we'll also, if that's all right, we'll share with you, Tanya, our list
Sure.
of people that would be really important to follow. And maybe it can be in like the caption of the Instagram IGTV video, or we can also just comment and have the list there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so follow, support, it's really important. So
Thank you. So again, everyone, you can follow at decolonizing.zoroastrianism on Instagram. And if you would like to be part of their listserv, that will be available soon. Thank you so much, Gordy and Yasna, for your time today, for actually creating this account and educating us and empowering us so that we can be better prepared to have these conversations that need to happen. I think everyone should absolutely support you in any way. And if they have any questions or any kind of concerns, always to reach out to you so that we can always have more knowledge. At the end of the day, I agree, we need to kind of become more empathetic, become more able to actually educate ourselves and apply ourselves actively out there instead of just listening and not doing anything, or seeing, you know, concerning comments and not saying anything about it. So I think what you're doing is absolutely amazing. Thank you for your time, and thank you everybody else for attending. Take care.
yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Take care.
Bye.